I worked as a pizza delivery driver for 2 years, and this experience was the creepiest thing that ever happened to me. It was a beautiful and sunny day when I was sent on a delivery around 1 p.m. to a nice neighborhood. I rang the doorbell, and an old lady with a walker answered it and handed me the money. She asked if I could put the pizza on her kitchen table because she was alone, and it was hard for her to carry things. For safety reasons, it's against policy for drivers to enter a customer's house. But I thought, she's old and needs my help. What if this was my grandma? So I decided to help. As I walked into her kitchen to place the pizza on her table, I heard a thumping noise from upstairs, but I brushed it off and continued on. Then the old lady asked me to wait while she got me an extra tip for helping her, leaving me alone. As I stood there, I heard the thumping sound again. I asked her if she heard a noise, but she denied hearing anything. Suddenly, I heard another thud followed by a dragging sound coming from the second floor. I felt my heart racing but tried to remain calm. I told her that the tip wasn't necessary and that I had to go for other deliveries, but she insisted, saying that she almost had it. I started making my way toward the front door, and as I got closer, I heard a gasp coming from the top of the stairs next to the door. I looked up and saw something rush backwards. I quickly opened the front door and heard her voice saying, "Here you are, sweetie." I thanked her and rushed to my car. Once inside, I saw the old lady watching me from the front door, and to make matters worse, I saw someone else in a window from the first floor. I slammed the gas and took off. When I told my coworkers what had happened, they looked at me like I was crazy. Thankfully, I never had to deliver there again. As a pizza delivery guy, I was having a really busy night and hadn't had the chance to take a bathroom break. We had also been going through a heat wave in our area, so I'd been drinking a lot of water. As I was driving that night, the urge to pee became unbearable. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so I figured I could get this delivery over with quickly. I pulled up to the house, and all the lights were off inside. Not even a glow of a TV. The street light closest to the door was out of order, and on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. It was a big university area, and there weren't many student renters in July, but there had to be at least one person, because someone ordered this pizza. I assumed that they just liked sitting in the dark, or they were out back in the yard. I didn't want to get out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night without first checking if I had the correct address and the customer was inside. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end sounded out of breath, said, "Yeah?" Trying to keep it brief, I said, "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." The customer, still gasping for air, responded that she wasn't home. I needed to pee so badly that I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with a customer. I simply told her that we were going to have to cancel the order because I arrived in the stated delivery window and she needed to pay cash. She pleaded for me to wait for her, explaining that she had lost track of time at work and would be there in 5 minutes. Being that I had delivered to her before and she'd been pretty nice, I agreed to wait for her while looking out for the best spot to pee. All the other houses had people in them and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or of land. Finally, I decided it was escalating to the point of an emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home, and the street light was out, so no one would see me. My car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms, so if someone did spot me, they'd have no way to connect me to my employer. I rushed over to the tallest bush in her front yard, looked both ways, and unzipped. After the initial second of relief, I noticed the sound was off, like peeing on something solid instead of leafy. I kept squinting into the darkness to see if I was hitting a key rock or something. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning noise. A deep voice shouting, "What the heck?" I assumed I'd been caught by a neighbor, but before I could turn around, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He ran past me, brushing himself and spitting as he went. I heard a car screech from a bit further away after a minute. I was able to make out his height, build, and outfit, but only the most general details of each. The man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. I was still in shock and just stood there trying to figure out what had happened. I turned on my phone's flashlight and tried looking around. I saw a torn drawstring bag sitting behind the bushes, and when I pulled it open, it had a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. I dropped the bag, ran across the street into my car, and slammed the gas before the door was closed all the way. I went as far and as fast as I could until I hit a red stoplight and realized I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a breath. I was finally calm enough to zip up and create a plan. My first thought was, who do I call first, the police or the girl? I decided she needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was calling her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl? I remember delivering to that house before, but what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me there to rob me, or even worse? The whole thing was off. I couldn't risk it. I called 911, but I was too tense and my line of thought was uncoordinated, so I kept rambling on the phone. The operator was very helpful in keeping me calm because I was a complete wreck. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon. I saw an incoming call from the customer, but I couldn't answer it without disrupting my 911 call, so I just ignored it. She then texted me, "Hey, I'm here. I don't see you." I told 911 she was there, and they said officers were only minutes away, but who knows how long that meant. I felt overwhelmed with guilt, because the odds of her being a decoy girl for some large scam targeting pizza guys were low, and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. I turned back and told 911 I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about it. As I approached her house, I saw her turning back to the parked cars in the street trying to see if one was mine, and I flashed my brights at her. She headed over to my car, and I repeatedly asked her to get in, not wanting to make the same mistake with her as I did with 911. Instead of trying to tell her the whole story, I stuck to the bare basic facts. There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors. I was barely able to get those sentences out. Shaking, I held up my phone with 911 on the call screen to show her. I thought that was why she got into the car with no further explanation, but it turns out that wasn't entirely it. 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them, and we drove more cautiously this time to a location 911 instructed us to wait to speak with police after they cleared the area. The police came pretty soon after. I gave a statement telling them everything I had seen, and she went to go speak to more officers in further detail than they needed me for. It turns out the reason she got into a strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is that she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind from hearing, "There's a guy in your bushes." I worked the night shifts as a pizza delivery driver. One night, I drove out to the other side of town for my last delivery. It was in the woods, and there weren't any lampposts, so the only light I had was my car's headlights. When I got there, it was a small house. I went near the door and knocked. I could hear voices and a child's laughter from inside, but no one answered. So I knocked on the window next to the door. I turned around for a few seconds when suddenly I saw a woman's face in the window. She asked me to go to the back gate, so I did. It wasn't the first time a customer had asked me to do that, so it wasn't a big deal. As I approached the back door, I noticed blood spilled everywhere. Then I heard someone shout, "Help!" I put the pizza down and ran to my car. I started to drive off, and I looked back at the house. I saw a creepy old woman and twins standing at the front door with their eyes fixed on me. I held my foot down on the gas and drove back quickly.